Welcome back to the High School B'Kiyas program. Today we are going to be doing Yud Zayin Amud Aleph in Moed Katan. The Gemara is going to include 6 main points today. First, we're going to mention that the Talmid Chacham who makes a excommunication of somebody else, even for its own honor, it's valid. We're going to discuss a big story of Rabbi Yehuda, where he's going to excommunicate a certain rabbi who had a bad reputation, and it was binding. Then we're going to discuss a tangential story about Rebbe's maidservant who put something in excommunication, Reish Lakish's excommunication, which was invalid. Then we're going to discuss a very controversial question about putting a leader who did something wrong in excommunication, or whether that should be concealed. And then we're going to mention 2 practices of Mar Zutra and Rav Papa to show some hesitancy to excommunicating people. And then we're going to mention the impact and real power and strength of a curse of a excommunication. 2 lines of Tezayin Beis. Amar of Tanchum Berei de Rav Chia Ish Kfar Akko. Amar of Yaakov Bar Acha. Amar of Simlai. So Rabbi Tanchum, the son of Rabbi Chia from Akko, quoted Rabbi Yaakov Bar Acha, who quoted Rabbi Simlai. Bamrila, and some say, Amar Tanchum Amar Rav Huna, Amrila Rav Huna Lechude. That Rabbi Tanchum quoted Rav Huna, and some say a third version that Rav Huna said it on his own. Talmid Nida Lekvoda Nidoi, that it's valid when a Talmid Chacham makes a excommunication, even for his own honor. There's a type of excommunication that someone does because they're disparaging Torah. Someone's in contempt of Torah. That's something that we absolutely have to put in excommunication, but it's a question, what about if it's only for the disrespect someone has to a Talmid Chacham? So we're seeing over here in the Gemara that it is considered a valid Nidoi, even if it's only for that. Titania, a proof, Menuda l'Rab, Menuda l'Talmid. If the rabbi decides to put someone in excommunication, it's valid even for his students. Menuda l'Talmid and Menuda l'Rab. Or the opposite, if the Talmid puts someone in excommunication, it's not effective and binding upon his rabbi. And l'Rab huda eno Menuda, halakuliyama Menuda. You see that this type of excommunication that a Talmid makes is only not binding upon the rabbi, but is binding upon other people. And you see, it's considered a binding excommunication. Lamai, what was the purpose of this excommunication? The student who made the Talmid who made a excommunication, if it was because the person was in contempt of Shamayim, in contempt of Hashem, because he disgraced Torah, so there's no advice a person can have to violate and flagrantly go against Hashem. And we don't respect the person who's going against Hashem flagrantly, and we're going to put an excommunication. It doesn't matter if it's a student or a rabbi. Whoever puts an excommunication is binding upon everybody, including on the teacher. So that must not be the case. Rather, it's for his own honor, and since he did it for his own honor, it's only binding upon lots of people, but not, and for the student, but not upon the rabbi. So you see, a Talmid Chacham can make a nidui, make an excommunication for his own honor. Amar Rav Yosef, a rabbi is allowed to do a judgment for himself if something is clear to him. Now, this is true that other people are allowed to also do certain monetary judgments for himself. It's just, you might have thought that out of the honor of the respect to show a rabbi is supposed to not do certain things, and this would be beneath his honor to go and act for himself in certain areas of mammonis. And the halacha is that it's not the case, and in fact, he's allowed to do something that's obvious and clear. He's allowed to take judgment into his own hands. There's a story about a certain rabbi who had a bad reputation. What should we do, Rav Yehuda thought? We have the following problem on our hands. Should we put him in excommunication? But the rabbis need him. The name of heaven is being disgraced. It's Chilul Hashem, that people see the way that this man is acting indecently, and no one's doing anything about it. We better put him in excommunication. So Rabbi Yehuda, the leader of the generation, is trying to figure out what to do with this bad reputation. Rabbi, he asked, do you know anything specifically about this case? What should we do about it? I have a quote from Rabbi Yochanan who says the following. The pasuk says that the lips of the Kohen is going to be able to teach Torah, protect words of wisdom, the Torah of action. You should go learn from him. Why? Because this holy Kohen, he's comparable to an angel. So says the Gemara, we learn from this, Rabbi Yochanan, Im Dom Harav L'Malach Hashem, if someone is so holy and pure that they're like an angel, you've actually turned Rapiv, you should learn Torah. Im Lav, I should actually turn Rapiv. If he's not, you shouldn't learn from him. So you see that even if we need this rabbi, but if he has a bad reputation, he's not like an angel, we shouldn't learn from him. And therefore we should put an excommunication because we don't really need him. Shamti Rabbi Yehuda, it came out that we put him in excommunication. The Sofi Echlesh, Rabbi Yehuda, one day, Rabbi Yehuda got sick, Atu Rabban L'Shai Lebei, and people were visiting him, Bikar Cholim, Atu Le'ihu Namik V'Hadayu. And this person was excommunication because Rabbi Yehuda came and visited Rabbi Yehuda, Kachazi, Rabbi Yehuda Chayach, and he saw Rabbi Yehuda was smiling, Amalei, Lamatayach, L'Shante L'Haru Gavra. It's not bad enough, says this man. You put me in excommunication. You're laughing at me. What are you doing? You're laughing. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing because of the fact I want to go into the next world. I'm going to have a good, pleasant mindset. I wasn't flattered. I didn't do flattery to anybody, even to people like you. You were a respected man, but yet I put you in excommunication when that was appropriate. So he was happy about what he did, and he was confident he was going to go in Shemaim, he's going to go judgment. Yehuda died. This man, after Rabbi Yehuda died, went to the Beit Medrash and asked, can you please take me out of excommunication now that Rabbi Yehuda passed away? The rabbi said, the great man, Rabbi Yehuda, is not around anymore to permit you from excommunication. So go ask someone else who's a great Nasi, the Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya. Go and ask him to remove excommunication. Also, look at me. He came in front of him. Rabbi Ami Puchat Ayin Bedine. So he said, Rabbi Ami to go check into this. Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya said, I'm not going to look into it personally. Go check at the facts, Rabbi Ami. And if you think he's worthy to take the guy's excommunication, out of excommunication, do so. Ayin Rabbi Ami Medina, he looked into the case. He thought he was about to take him out of excommunication. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani got up in his feet and said, no way. The maidservant Rabbi, the maidservant Rabbi once put someone in excommunication, and they didn't touch that excommunication for 3 years. They made excommunication so serious that she made for 3 years and they touched it. So Yehuda Chavarino, our friend Yehuda, Rav Yehuda, the great leader, how much more so we should not touch his excommunication, we shouldn't repeal them. He says, how amazing is it? What happened in front of us that now the Ata that he came in front of us today, this high Sava, this old man that gave us this report that Rav Shmuel Bar Nachmani told us that the maidservant Rebbe's excommunications were so serious, we should certainly take Rav Yehuda's excommunication seriously. That he hasn't come to the Daha Kamashane Lo Ata. He didn't come for many years, Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani. And now Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani showed up one day, and it was exactly the day that we needed him to tell us not to take people out of excommunication. Obviously, Hashem doesn't want him to be taken out of excommunication. Hashem made it so that Rabbi Shmuel would appear on this day that we needed him. Lo Sharlei. If it didn't take him out of the excommunication, Nafak ki Kabachi. It came, this man who was excommunicated and going to stay that way, he left crying from the Beit Medrash. A certain animal came and bit him by his amatay, a certain aver that he used for doing averos, mida keneged mida, Tosfos says. So since he used doing averos, so he's punished that way and he died. Shachav ilavayu, he died there. Ailuhu, they brought him. Lamarot of the Hasidim, they're burying him in the cave of the Hasidim. And lo kablu, there was a sign that he wouldn't be accepted. And then they tried to bring him to the cave by the Dayanim, where there were less great people there, and he was accepted to be buried in there. My time what was so wrong about this guy? Because he followed Rabbi Eli's idea. The time Rabbi Eli Omer Imroa Adam Shizra Megaber Allah, if somebody has a big Yetzer Hara and he sees that it's coming upon him, he should go to a place that's very secluded, nobody recognizes him. He should wear black clothes, and he should cover his head with black. He has and do whatever he wants. Don't do something in public in the place that you are. So this Talmud Chacham followed Rabbi Eli's advice and did something terrible in a different place so no one knew him. Now Rashi says that's not exactly what Rabbi Eli actually meant. Rabbi Eli was just telling people they should, if they have a big Yetzer, they should go somewhere else, and they should stop themselves from doing an Aveiro by the time they go somewhere else. And the time they put on the black clothing, they'll remember, what am I doing here? What am I doing something wrong? Obviously, it's not worth it. I shouldn't be doing something wrong. And they should come to humility and not do anything wrong. That person didn't do so, and he had a bad reputation for a good reason. Therefore, he was put in excommunication and died an appropriate death. What was the story of the maidservant of Rebbe? Once the maidservant of Rebbe saw a man who was hitting his older son. She said, make this guy an excommunication to cover this guy is going to be putting a stumbling block in front of his son because his son might hit him back. And that is a avera to hit his father. You're not allowed to put stumbling blocks in front of people. And a great example is if someone hits their son might hit them back, and that's an avera. New story. One to Rish Lakish had an orchard, and a man came and was starting to steal and eat figs. And he started screaming, the man didn't listen to his screaming. He said the guy should be excommunicated. The man said back to Rabbi Yehuda, why are you putting me in excommunication? You should be in excommunication. It's true, I stole from you, and I owe you money. Just because I stole money doesn't mean that you should put me in excommunication. Other than the Joshua, Shlakish came to the Medrash, Amr, Shalom Nidui, Shalom Nidui. It happened that his excommunication of you is valid, yours of his is invalid. What should I do about that? Should I go to him to get him to remit it? Well, you don't know. I can't go to him because I don't know who he is anymore. I don't know where he is. Can't find him. You know what you can do? Go to the Nasi. He will fix the problem. If you have somebody who excommunicated, you don't know who it is, you can always go to the Nasi, chief rabbi, and he'll take care of the nido, and that would work. Rav Huna takes the opinion that if someone, a great leader, a head judge, does something terrible, they shouldn't put him in excommunication. It could be that they would put him in excommunication privately, but certainly not publicly. But that's the first opinion. Don't put him in excommunication, or don't put him in excommunication, at least publicly. They tell him, stay in your house, be quiet, keep concealed. But if he does it again, if he does something terrible publicly again, then we have to absolutely put him in excommunication, because if we don't act about this publicly, everybody's going to realize that we're not doing anything, and that would be a terrible chol Hashem. So that's where we act and put him in excommunication publicly. This disagrees with the Rish Lakish, because Damar Rish Lakish, that Talmud that does something wrong, we always try to conceal it, maybe even the second time. If someone does something wrong, if someone makes a mistake, he falls today and he continues to fall, even with the Navi with you, it should be like a Laila. What exactly does that mean? It should be like Laila, it should be in the night. Kaseo Kalayla, you should hide the fact that someone did something wrong, like the night. And the point is not to continue to cause a Chil Hashem or a virus, but you should continue to allow people to give him respect if he has other things that are going for him. It's actually a terrible menace to society. Absolutely, we have to take care of that situation. Marzucha had a practice. Whenever you put someone in excommunication, always put himself in excommunication first, because if he's putting a Surah Rabban, a rabbi, in excommunication, so he felt bad out of the honor for that rabbi, he's going to put in excommunication, he put himself in excommunication first. He felt bad reason. First, he put himself in excommunication, and then that other person. When you go home or come to his host's house, first he removed the excommunication upon himself. And then he removed the excommunication of that other rabbi. Rav Gidel says it's possible for a person to put himself in excommunication and to remove it for himself. Rav Papa said even better practice is never to put people in excommunication, and Hashem should give me a reward of the fact that I never did that. What would you do with those? So if a rabbi actually did something wrong and he deserves to put in excommunication? I'm going to give this to Surah Rabbanon, so the Gemara says, I'll tell you what, in the West, in Eretz Yisrael, what they did is that they would always, if they had something that was a case that they put someone in excommunication, they'd really put them, judge them for getting lashes. Mimnu Nagida, they would count up the rabbis and decide that he deserves to get lashes. For a rabbi that does something wrong, the Surah Rabbanon should get Nagida, lashes. He shouldn't get excommunication. My Shamta, what is that implication of someone getting excommunication? Amar Rav Shaimita. It means that they should be cursed to die. That's the expression Shanta. Shmomar Shemama. It should be total desolation, destruction. Yeah. And it actually works. Ki tachya b'tinura, it's like a plaster on top of an oven that keeps it very well. Well, just like the shamta affects the 248 limbs of a person's body, Rish Lakish has a different understanding of the way that the shamta works. It could come in, but it's also possible to be rectified. So it goes into the 248 limbs of a person's body, but it can leave the 248 limbs of the person's body. Dichtiv, v'hayta cherem. Cherem is another word for excommunication. So it says in the pasuk cherem b'gematria matam v'arbaim mishmona hava. So we know the idea that it affects a person's 248 limbs because it's a gematria of 248 from the word cherem. When it leaves, it's going to leave the 248 limbs. How do we know? That in your mercy, in your anger, you're going to have mercy upon us. So remember, Rachim is also begematria hachihavu. It's also 248. Amrav Yosef Shar di Shamta Gnufta the Kabba the Ihi Dida Abda. Once there was a tale of a dog that had a excommunication, and it was definitely seriously affected. What was the story? Once there was a dog that was eating the sandals of the rabbis. They didn't know who was the culprit. The anonymous culprit, they put an excommunication. And then the tail caught fire. The tail caught fire. And it destroyed up that tail, ate up the tail. The fire ate up the tail of the dog. There was once this mobster, a person that was very strong and powerful, that was causing trouble to the rabbis. The rabbis came to Rav Yosef and said, put this guy in excommunication. I'm afraid of him. Why don't you write down the excommunication on a piece of paper that curses him, and then he won't know about it. No, I'll be even more afraid of him because in case he finds out about it, it might be bad repercussions. Why don't you take that piece of paper that you'll write down and then put it in a jug, and he won't know. And then you put it in the cemetery. And then you'll blow 1,000 blasts with the shofar. Over 40 days you'll blow a lot of the shofar blows. Also, and this is what Rav Yehuda did. And then on the last day, the jug holding the shamta paper burst, and that person died. What's the implication of shipure? Of these blasts? They're implying they should curse the guy, and that the person is going to be paid back for his wicked deeds. My tavra. What does that mean? That there is a tavra, something breaking over here. Amar Yitzchak Bered or Yehuda Tavri Badirame. There's breaking of the tall, mighty buildings. That's an expression we're using over here, that this is going to be a destruction for that person. This is very real, that whenever the rabbis looked in a certain place and they want to curse it, that was absolutely going to cause there to be a death or a poverty in that place. By the daf a week, we have Ihu and Ihi. Ihu is he, Ihi is she. Daha is because, and Amid has those words and a few more. Leika means there is not, and Mineh is from him. The takeaways for today are excommunication is only binding when there's a valid reason for disparaging a Talmid Chacham or in contempt of Torah. There's a dispute about what do you do when there is a respected head judge and needs to be excommunication. Do we not put him in excommunication? Sounds like Rav Huna. Or do we do it privately? Or Rish Lakish? We always do it privately, even in the second time. And a Shamta is something that affects the 248 limbs, and according to Shmuel, it could cause someone to die.